Welcome, Drink with James, episode 147. We got a special one today. I am where I belong. I am surrounded by luxury. I am in the brand new presidential suite at the Four Seasons Boston. I'm gonna rip some champagne and talk about influencers. Cheers. Okay, so you might ask yourself, how did I end up here? Because obviously I'm not paying to stay here. So we are throwing an event tonight with the Four Seasons. As I said, they just redid these suites. I don't know that we can really show you the view. Maybe I'll have Brian swing around or something, but this room is insane. It has a, 25-foot window here that looks out over the Boston Public Garden. It's like a less dirty, populous version of Central Park. Apparently is one of the first public park in the country. The room is also obviously incredible. We're sitting in like maybe a third of it. But Four Seasons was excited to kind of bring in, we've got, 70 influencers or something RSVP tonight. We're gonna do a little cocktail thing. We're gonna bring them up here, let them kind of shoot some content. Again, there's like 15 different nooks and crannies in this room to shoot in. I personally am a big fan of the oil painting, and I just feel like in general, oil painting should be making a comeback. I could sit here and geek out about like hotel design for the next 45 minutes if you just want to do that. But I will say this, something I do really like is that, most hotel rooms now are just like generically modern. And I like, obviously the Four Seasons, everything they do is divine and perfect, and they are incredible. So unsurprisingly, this room I feel like has so much character of not only the park, we're sitting on top of this incredible custom rug that looks like you cut a tree, and it's kind of like the like trunk of a tree, and that kind of like branches out throughout the room. But I also love that while it does feel updated and modern, it isn't like super modern furniture. You've got the oil painting back here. It feels kind of like cozy and like old school elegant. Which is perfect, because I feel like if you had a super modern room here, it just wouldn't feel right. And I think it actually, we can create a really nice bridge to the rest of the episode here by saying that, we wanted to kind of have a theme for this episode and talk about creativity in general. And I think, what is great about this room and the Four Seasons in general, again, is that they didn't just do the normal thing that everybody is doing now. They really kind of stepped back and tried to look at their surroundings. So there's a difference between, I think, being creative and trying to do something interesting and different, and being able to copy trends. And it is a distinction, I think, that is too often lost. And something that we're going to kind of dive into today. So I want to thank the Four Seasons team, who is always so good to us and has been so welcoming here in Boston. We're looking forward to the event tonight, and I thank you all for letting me sit in your presidential suite. Oh, here's another thing. I thought I said this on video, but I said it on my Insta stories already, which is that they literally finished this today. So I am the first person to do anything in this room. And that is like, you can kind of put that on my tombstone, I think. Like, this is, it's not often that you get to like break in, one of the nicest hotel rooms in a city, and I have that honor, and I'm taking you guys with me on this journey. So let's get into it. Question number one is in response to the piece that Taylor wrote at The Atlantic about the Instagram aesthetic dying that I was interviewed for, and someone just asking to kind of elaborate on that. So if you haven't seen the piece, Tim will put a link up somewhere to it. I know it's been making its way around the internet pretty quickly over the last couple weeks, and I've gotten a couple questions about it. Essentially, what Taylor was talking about in the piece is that, this overly pretty Instagram aesthetic is dying, right? The like stand in front of a pink wall, hold a big bouquet of, I don't know, what do people hold? What are those, like big thing of hydrangeas wrapped in butcher paper and like smile really wide. Like that aesthetic is kind of dying. And she did an incredible job reporting the piece and really dove in and talked to not only influencers who are kind of going against the grain. One of them was Reese from Double Exposure, who we've talked about a good amount, but also looking at brands. She was looking at like kind of meme accounts, and Balenciaga, who has been growing their Instagram really quickly and outpacing their luxury fashion counterparts as far as growth rate and engagement goes. And it's just talking about how the aesthetic of Instagram is changing, and it's going from really pretty to kind of purposefully ugly almost, and like really kind of grimy, and that it's following the larger kind of grunge trend that we're seeing in fashion. There's a lot of like early 90s fashion coming back. This has been happening for years now. And it was an interesting conversation about, what influencers should be thinking about, and how does this truth affect people, right? If it's the case that like people don't want pretty anymore, what do you do as an influencer if that's your niche? If that's the thing that you're good at. And I think that it is important to kind of understand the trends. I think it's important to know like why that is doing well. It's important to understand, why people think Balenciaga is doing a good job, even though Balenciaga is terrible. And I think everything they produce is total crap. But it is very much like in the cultural lexicon right now. It is like very much like the vibe, and I think that it is really important to understand that, and to understand that might be why your content isn't doing that well. Now, how you react to that, I think, is kind of a different story, and I think we've talked about this before. But something I've been thinking about is just asking yourself why you do this at all, and I think it is really important to continue to have fun with this and to enjoy the stuff that you're putting out into the world. And if you are chasing growth or chasing engagement, and you are doing that by co-opting someone else's aesthetic to try and jump on a trend so that you can grow, I'm not sure you're going to be happy. Now, maybe your end goal is just growth and you just want, to have as many followers as possible. And if that's the case, I would say like go buy some bright orange coveralls and some really ugly sunglasses, and like take pictures of yourself like squatting on the ground, like, doing something with your hands. This, I think, is what the kids do. I think they like kind of squat down and like sit in coveralls, and they're like, oh, my clothes are ugly, but like I'm interesting. Again, this is not a new thing. I believe young people have, throughout history, dressed like morons to try and piss off old people. So again, I don't think this is really any kind of like big surprising thing that is happening, and honestly not that much different than when grunge was popular last time in the 90s. You got to think we were coming out of the 80s where there was a huge economic boom. Everyone had money. It was very ostentatious. It was all about like cocaine and Armani suits, and then grunge came along, and it was like the total opposite of that, right? It was a rejection of all of those things. And right now we are in, an unprecedented, the economy is doing great right now. People have a lot of money. And, I think youth, like young people, I think it's just a pretty similar cultural moment that was happening back in the back in the 90s, in the late 80s into the 90s. And is that like rejection of beautiful things that can kind of set young people apart from their crustier, older counterparts, such as myself. So I do think it is important to understand these things, but again, as I was saying in the intro, I don't think it's important or interesting to jump onto trends that you don't believe in. Now, if you want to play around with it, if you want to experiment, like, I think that is awesome. I think that like a big part of creativity is experimentation. It is trying new things. It is, taking like, keeping your eyes open to like inputs and like to seeing different things and then interpreting those things and like trying something new. I know I've said quite a few times on the show that like when I was into photography, so much of my journey was copying photographers that I really respected. And I would see one of Jamie Beck's photos and I would try to, as closely as I could, copy it. I often wouldn't publish those photos, but that's how I kind of honed my craft and tried to get better, was by seeing if I could take a photo of the same thing. And it was easy because we were both in New York, so I could literally go to the same locations and things that she was in, and I would try and take the same exact photo. And by doing that, I would force myself to learn the techniques that she used without being able to ask her. So I think that like exploring trends like that can be really, really valuable, but I think you can also get lost in them and kind of lose your individuality, which is at the end of the day the only thing that is going to kind of set you apart in this world and help you gain a following. And I think that's a real thing to consider if you are thinking about chasing a trend, is how are you going to continue to keep your unique point of view. Question number 2 is, how do I think Instagram removing like counts from photos will change the platform? I know last week we talked a little bit about whether or not I thought Instagram would do this and what their reasoning for doing it was. And this week it feels like, I think they're rolling this out on a bigger scale. I've heard from a few Canadians in the last few hours that in Canada they are now hiding like counts. I've kind of 2 things to say on that. In the week or so since filming the last episode and thinking about this, I have been trying to think, why would Facebook do this? Why would they remove likes? Likes is such a big part of the platform. It's such a sticky thing. When you post a photo, you go back and you're like, for an hour, you're just refreshing. You want to see the likes that you're getting. So why would they remove something like that? And as I got a little further away from it, realized, well, one, the experience for you as a poster is not going to change. You're still going to see the likes. They're not going to remove likes. They're just going to remove the ability for other people to see them. So you will still have that thing where you're coming and you're checking the likes. And then I was thinking how the only reason that Facebook would roll this out, would take likes away, is if they felt like it got people posting more, right? As we said last week, Facebook is a business. The only thing they care about is making money. That's fine. And they will not make any decision that makes them less money. So if they're going to roll this out, they will only do it if it makes them more money. How would it make them more money? I think one thing that could be kind of interesting about it is I sometimes don't post because I don't feel like the photo that I'm going to post is going to do well. And since it's not going to do well, I don't want to post it because I don't want something sitting in my account that has 110 likes on it. And so I post a lot less than I used to. And I wonder if by hiding likes publicly, if people will be more free with what they post, if they maybe go back to posting twice a day or 3 times a day, or they just are posting more freely and not thinking about it and feeling the pressure of having to get all these likes on every single post and have your engagement be completely equal across the board and blah, 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 blah. And if you remove that tension of, can I get likes on this post? Do you post more? And for Instagram, if you post more, it means they have more places to put advertising, and it means that they can make quite a bit more money. So if they say, Stories has been great, but Stories has completely eroded the amount that people are posting in feed. We've seen this on our platform. It used to be before Stories that people posted 90 to 120 times a month. Now they're posting 20 to 30 times a month. And while they're posting a lot of stories, and while Facebook and Instagram can sell story ads aren't nearly as lucrative, and they're not nearly as common. And they probably need more people in the feed doing things. And one way to do that is more photos happening more often. And removing likes might just do that for them. And the more I've been thinking about it over the next week, I think for me it would be great because, again, you're still going to see, personally, you're still going to see the likes. The brands are still going to be able to, I assume, somehow access that or see it, or they'll just have influencers share that with them. And it could create a space where we don't feel like every photo needs to be perfect, and it might create space for more experimentation, for people taking risks, for posting things they really love instead of just, posting selfies of themselves, that they know is going to kill and is going to get a lot of likes. So I do think that it could increase the creativity of the platform and increase the diversity of content that we get to see. And I personally welcome our new overlords. They're not really our new overlords. I welcome our overlords' new experimentations, and I'm happy to see where it goes. Question number 3 is, how do you feel about people ripping off your fill in the blank? How do you feel about people ripping off what you're doing? I'm not gonna be one of those people that says like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, because honestly, it's really annoying. It's annoying to do something and to have it stolen. This is why I think that all the meme accounts are total trash. I've never been like a fat Jew, fuck Jerry fan. I don't think it's interesting when people just steal other people's stuff and put it up, and I just don't really think that takes a huge amount of talent. I'm not saying that there's not funny stuff on that account, but it doesn't have anything to do with, fuck Jerry or the fat Jew. So it's not interesting, and those dudes are millionaires and they did that off stealing other people's jokes. But I digress. It is annoying when people steal things from you, especially if you are not in a position of power, right? It's one thing to be very successful and to do something and to have people try and emulate it. That's annoying, but probably not as annoying as not being successful and having someone successful with a much bigger platform come and steal your thing. So now you can't be seen as the genesis of that, and now it looks like you are copying the person that stole from you, which is incredibly annoying, but happens all the time. I think that for me, it's probably just not a really interesting thing to think about that much, because what are you going to do? There's literally nothing you can do. I think that if you find yourself in life doing something that works and that brings you success, other people will look at it and say, okay, I'm going to do that too. When we started this company, we were the first influencer marketing platform in the world. Now, I'm not going to say that people copied us. It's not that crazy of an idea. But it certainly has been, frustrating over the years to see hundreds of companies launch doing what we're doing. But I think what I have found to be true in life is that ideas are essentially meaningless and execution is really the only thing that matters. You know, the idea of Fohr Card when we started it was really not that great of an idea. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like I invented a fucking personal computer or something, you know, and so the idea hasn't really meant anything. I think that like what is more important is your ability to execute on it and your ability to do it well. And I think that our society in general places too much value on ideas. And I know that like when people are thinking about starting a business, they're like, you know, I'd love to be an entrepreneur, but I just don't have a great idea. And to that, you have to say like again, like most businesses are not, they're not original ideas. I mean, Facebook was just another version of MySpace, you know, and it wasn't really any different other than like it started in colleges and it was blue. And the only thing that's mattered is execution, you know. Mark is an incredible executive and he's made like really good decisions and some bad ones over the last 15 years or so. And that has made all the difference, not the idea of Facebook. The idea of Facebook is meaningless when compared to the execution of it. And so I think if you can focus less on ideas and more on executing them effectively, that is where you will find your success. Okay, well, listen, that is it. I've got a cocktail party to go to, and we got influencers to bring into this room. I want to thank the Four Seasons team again, both the global team and the team here in Boston. They're in one of the many rooms of this suite. So thank you all. And if you happen to be a person of means, and if you happen to need to come to Boston, I implore you to try and rent this room out, and you can stand in front of this window. You can, you know, look for the red coats. You can look out at beautiful Boston and think it's great to be rich. So, cheers.